I'm Presh Williams from Big Picture Film Club, joined with my co-host Avisha Patel from Big Picture Film Club. And today we are joined by Simon J Frith and Grant Philpott from the movie Under the Radar, the Mike Edmonds story. For those not in the know, could you tell us a bit about what the documentary is about?
Yeah, well, I guess it's the life story of a little actor called Mike Edmonds, not surprisingly, given the title, who's been in loads and loads and loads of big Hollywood blockbusters, Star Wars, Flash Gordon, Time Bandits, and in fact, he's the last surviving Time Bandit. And I've known him, I'd say, a very long time. And the sad thing, if you like, is that no one really knows who he is. He's almost like an invisible person. He was low grey in Star Wars, so he's inside a costume. And even though his face was seen in Time Bandits, it is not sort of known. So I wanted to tell his story because he's friends with all these different people, and he's such a humble guy in himself. He's not he doesn't boast and say, well, actually, I was in this, I was in that. And in fact, when we started, Grant and I started to put this thing together, we initially thought it would just be a short story, a sort of a nice story about maybe a tale of two halves in terms of the pluses of being involved with all these great films, but maybe the downside of having to sort of live with achondroplasia, which is quite a limiting condition. And when we started to do the interview, even though I've known him for 20 plus years, it became quite apparent that there was far more material than we would actually be able to squeeze into a sort of 15-20 minute short. And what was really insightful was when he was mentioning people like Terry Gilliam and Colin Firth. When we spoke to those people, they immediately said, yes, we'd love to do this. So it sort of said this wasn't just a small story at all. And so we went and spoke to those people. And once we had some of those on board, the rest all came on as well. So I don't know if I probably haven't done a really good story there of actually selling it, but anything you want to anyway?
Well, when it comes to I did the artwork for the film and directed the animation, because with a story like that, obviously it would cost an awful lot of money to license any third-party films. So where possible to tell a story, there's a little bit of animation, a little animated sequence. And when we interviewed Terry Gilliam, speaking to him, we said, well, can we just sort of use that style, and can we borrow some of the elements from Time Bandits? And he said, sure, go ahead. So we kind of had his endorsement there, which was great. And so I kind of did a sort of Monty Python kind of not limited style because of the nature of our budget as well. It was kind of it lent itself to that kind of style, and because Mike can act in small spaces. For example, he was the tail operator of Jabba the Hutt. So to explain that story, Return of the Jedi, there's a little sequence there where he tells that story. So that's sort of how we told those bits where we couldn't get the footage.
A question specifically, well, more so for you, Simon. And how do you, you're telling the story of someone's, 40 plus year career. How do you build a relationship for them to trust you in telling that 40-year story with, with sincerity, authenticity, in a way that they'll be happy and proud to see afterwards?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I did know Mike, which helped, I suppose.
Yeah.
But because we'd never really talked in detail about any of these stories, I was finding out as much about these from a fresh perspective as anybody that watches the film. And I guess with any sort of interview where you're sort of talking to somebody, whether you know them or not, you realise typically there's boundaries that you don't go beyond. And if you not push, but if you sort of try something and you sense that maybe there isn't a feeling of wanting to share certain things, you don't go down those roads. And some stories were really, really fruitful, and others maybe weren't great from a cinematic point of view. And we had to sort of get that balance as well in terms of turning out and working out what it is that we pieced together. So we took a very, I guess, a linear story in terms of where he was born and taken through those early stages to try and give I hope, if you like, to people who might be looking to follow a similar career in acting.
And how long did well, in putting together, again, you kind of describing it as this linear story, I guess, how do you know what to include in the story and what is perhaps not superfluous to need, but it doesn't add anything additionally to the narrative?
Well, we did a lot of work initially in terms of working out. We could sort of, as anyone can check, you could check on IMDb and find out what films he's been in. So we had a sort of an idea. And we, Mike's just joining us now.
Hi, Mike.
Hi there, Mike. Yeah, so just talking at the moment, Mike, about how we decided what to include in your story. But essentially, we spoke to Mike for quite a long period of time, really, over a number of different sessions, if you like, where we just sort of explored where the stories were going. And there was far more than we could possibly squeeze in. And so it was just a case of really putting them all in, editing them around, working out where the story fitted. And obviously some stories did end up on the cutting room floor. Some good stories as well that we just couldn't find a way of visually illustrating. So a story where Mike was in Legend and Ridley Scott had spoke to him about riding a pony, if you remember that one, Mike. But we couldn't find, we didn't have the footage, and it was more problematic. And even with a film and a story as good as that, if it's just talking head, it's not going to really sort of be as entertaining. And anything you want to add to that, Grant? Or
no, that's good. Nice to see you, Mike.
And you.
Still having your story being told after such a long, prolific career.
It's lovely. I'm very honoured to think that I just enjoyed what I've done, and to be honoured like this is lovely. I appreciate it.
Were you hands-on in the process at any point?
Sorry?
Were you hands-on in the process at any point in putting the story together?
No, not really. I just added my pieces of the poems I knew and things like this, yeah.
I would say, Mike, you were very game when it came to some of the filming. We had a photo shoot, and Mike had to get on a giant cushion so we could do all the shots where he flies through space, and lots of stuff. We covered pretty much everything that day, and of course all the sort of the GVs and stuff that you've done as well, which really help with the achondroplasia sort of storyline that runs parallel with the film story, you know. And that's great that you were able to do that, Mike, and help us out.
Well, I try to do my best to help. Yeah.
And of course, really, Mike's contacts. If we hadn't had Mike's contacts, we wouldn't have really been able to start. With Terry Gilliam, we didn't have a. I don't know. Mike even had his email address, so we had all these different ways of getting hold of people that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to. And when you send emails out to people, you don't know whether they're going to respond. So I think it's a testament to Mike and his relationship with them over the 40 odd years of your career, I guess, how that was evidence, if you like, that we were making the right film.
Yeah, when we contacted people, some couldn't make it on the day, and some were like, we're in the studio. Danny John Jules was like, yeah, to pop round, because we had the crew, and Simon turned up and they filmed him, and he gave you much more. I mean, he did all the headcast stuff.
He was doing a headcast at the same time, which was Red Dwarf, and it was fabulous.
Which is brilliant. And then Colin Firth came to us later when we revisited the project, and we were able to get him in, which is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
But they're all my friends, you see. I treat them just as like I treat you. They're no different. I don't treat them as stars, or I know him because he's on television or anything like that. It's just friends, and that's how I travel through life like that. I don't I value on what you are, your personality, and how you treat me, and that's what I value more than all your stardom.
You can see that with Colin. It's lovely, the warmth in that room. It's
Oh, we have a laugh. Colin and I used to have a laugh, silly thing. Yeah.
And just a final question to you, Mike Edmonds. In a career spanning for more than 40 years, 5 decades, I guess what are some highlights from yourself that you've kind of experienced in your time in the film industry?
Oh, there's so many. Where do I start? It's not only the film industry. I've been stage and things like this, and different commercial pop videos and things like that. One of the things I do value, and it's not to do with films, it's working for the Royal Shakespeare Company up at Stratford-on-Avon, and I did a kid's story called Lion and Witch in the Wardrobe, and I had a lovely part in it, and it was wonderful, and the people, they're all Shakespearean actors and things like this, and I got accepted as just one of them, and it was wonderful, and I had a super time. That's one time, and then of course doing Time Bandits, which is a very sort of cult film now. Everybody loves it, and it's still going. And sadly, I'm the last Time Bandit still alive, so I'm representing the guys on that one, So and things like that, But one of the things I do remember is that when I first did a stage production, and my parents come along, and they sent me a lovely card afterwards saying, "Mike, we are so proud of you," and that's I treasure that,
That's sweet.
Because I just had a normal job. I was a service engineer. I wasn't an actor. I've never, until I was 1978. I was about 35 then, and just answered an ad like the film tells you, and it went on from there.
Well, I think that's why I find it inspirational, a word that's overused maybe, but it's because Mike was 35 when he did a complete career change. So you see child actors today getting involved with films, but actually Mike didn't start until he was 35. Before that, he just had a normal job, if any job is normal. And I think a lot of people get to 20, 25, get up towards 29, you think, oh my God, life turmoil, I haven't made it yet. But actually you can make it at any age, whether you're 20, 35, 45, 55, 65, whatever age you are, you can still do and still deliver. And that's an important message.
And not only that, Simon, is to do it with a disability as well.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
You can do it.
And a smile and a joke.
You've got to. Laugh at life. We're only here a little while.
You are, yeah.
Well, Mike, Grant, and Simon, thank you very much for your time this evening, and we'll be looking forward to seeing the film, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.